Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am Rick Doherty. On today's episode, we're going to finish our conversation with our good friend Marissa from Chicago. Earlier this month, May of 2021, she visited Walt Disney World for the first time since the closures in 2020. In last week's episode, we talked about the first part of her trip. She discussed how she felt with the safety measures.
I did notice cast members constantly cleaning everything. I feel like everywhere I turned, there was a cast member wiping something down or cleaning something up. And that was really great to see because you could tell that they really did have that focus on keeping everything as clean and sanitized as possible. Another great thing that I loved and I hope sticks around was the distanced buses. It was so nice being guaranteed to have a seat and not leaving a park at 10 p.m. and ending up, standing for that bus ride the whole time while you're crammed in with a bunch of other sweaty people who have been at the park all day. So that was a nice plus.
She also talked about the emotions of being back in a theme park when she finally walked into Epcot.
It was actually kind of funny because when I first got there, I expected everything to hit me and just be really emotional. And I was kind of just in disbelief for a little while where I walked around International Gateway and I was like, oh, it's really pretty. Oh, look at these topiaries. Look how nice it is. I grabbed a Dole Whip. I sat down and I ate it and I was like, okay, I'm really here, but it still hadn't really sunk in yet. And then after I ate my Dole Whip, I made my way over to Sauron. And riding that, it finally hit me like, oh my gosh, I'm really back here. And, this is really happening. I'm finally back and I'm on Sauron, which is a ride that I absolutely love. And then I got a little emotional. Honestly, I was like, holy cow, I'm just so happy to be here. And then, then I really was like, okay, vacation, I'm back, ready to experience everything the parks have to offer as much as I possibly can in 4 days.
And she spent the first part of her second day of the vacation at Disney's Hollywood Studios to celebrate Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
Yeah, I was just there to soak it all in. I just wanted to try to take in as much of that atmosphere as I could, which was a running theme throughout my trip in general. But on that day, I really wanted to just experience all those people kind of riding that same high of like, this is so cool, and really feeling that. So I just kind of walked around. I enjoyed people watching. I enjoyed chatting with some people, saying, oh, wow, I love your costume. You dress so cool. Or, chatting with people about different Star Wars things as we're, standing in line for something. It really was an incredible experience. And if you're a Star Wars fan and you can manage to, who knows what the future of the reservation system will look like. But if you can manage to get to Galaxy's Edge on May 4th, highly recommend it.
Before we start with the second part of that conversation with Marissa, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps the show. Of course, I'm also an authorized Disney travel planner with Ear to There Travel. I have a lot of experience booking Universal Orlando Resort as well, and I can help you plan your next vacation almost anywhere in the world. My services are always 100% free to you. Just a $200 deposit can lock down your next WDW vacation. Email me at rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com, or call me 727-507-3123, 727-507-3123. Now, back to our conversation with Marissa from Chicago. When we left her last week, she had gotten a boarding group for Star Wars Rise of the Resistance on May the 4th at the 1 p.m. drop. After picking up that boarding group, Marissa decided to do some park hopping, and that's where we're going to rejoin the conversation.
Yes, I did. I actually hopped where I had originally intended to hop my first day and then decided not to. I went over to Magic Kingdom because I just didn't want to wait any longer until I could see the castle again. And I actually took the bus to Contemporary and then walked over, which worked out really well because there was a bus to Contemporary right when I was walking up to the bus station. So it was perfect timing. I got to Magic Kingdom right at like 2:05 and walked right in, and it was just like being home. It was great. It was like finally seeing the castle again with the new paint job and the new like extra turrets and banners they have on it. It's fantastic. It was just like, oh, finally.
So, what did you think about the castle? I know you said it was lovely, but this is one of those things with every single change that happens at Disney. There are going to be complainers and people who don't like it. I personally love the color. The turrets are making it even better, I think. Being able to see it from over when you're getting on the ferry boat or riding the monorail, it even sticks out more than it did in the past. I think I love it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it looks beautiful. I think that it looks so much more vibrant than it did in the past. And I actually saw a picture when I returned. I was looking through old pictures and I saw a picture of it in the past and a picture from this trip. And it really just, it does. It looks so much more alive almost, which is a weird thing to say, but it's more vibrant, it pops better, it's, more eye-catching, and it really does draw your focus at the end of Main Street. I mean, it always does, let's be honest. But it really, really stands out now, which I love to see it.
The first time my wife went back to the parks after the closure, we went to Animal Kingdom because we were able to get a reservation. It was our anniversary. We wanted to go to Tiffin's. Talk about Tiffin's again in a little bit. But we also made a dinner reservation at Kona Cafe, and I was a little worried, like, her first time seeing the castle after reopening isn't going to be in the parks. But then we were at Kona Cafe, we were at the Polynesian, waiting for our reservation. We just kind of walked around, and she was just like, oh my God, like when she first saw it across the way, because it stands out so much more now. I really absolutely love it. Another question, speaking of things that hadn't been available to any of us for a while. So that first visit back to Magic Kingdom, did you hop on the People Mover?
I did, yes. I did a couple other attractions first, but then I had to head over and hit up the People Mover on my first time back in the park. It was not the smoothest ride. We did get stopped a couple times, but I was just so happy to be back on it that I didn't even care. I was like, this is great. I'm just so happy to be sitting here going through this.
Yeah, the People Mover had closed with the parks in March of 2020 and didn't reopen until just a few days before Marissa's trip. So she really lucked into it. She actually got to ride it before I got to ride it, but we'll talk about that in just a few minutes as well. So you hit up Magic Kingdom for just a little bit, but you had your full Magic Kingdom day the next day, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then you headed back to Hollywood Studios. How was all of that Disney transportation? Because you said it was pretty smooth to get to Magic Kingdom. How did you get back?
I just took the bus again, and I actually got pretty lucky. I know that a lot of people have expressed frustration with the bus system, and there is no doubt in my mind that that is truthful. And they've experienced that because Disney buses are a whole different entity. But I got really lucky with my trip where I didn't have any bus issues, and they were like really running like every 10 minutes. There was another bus, if not sooner. So I got really lucky and was able to get back over to Hollywood Studios with no problem. And I actually got there. I gave myself some wiggle room just in case because I didn't know. But I ended up getting there just a little bit before my boarding group was called. So I was able to walk through Batu a little bit more and kind of get my last looks in, and then go ride Rise, which is just indescribably good. I don't even know if the words exist to put into, words about how great it is and how much I love it. It's breathtaking every time.
How many times have you done it now?
I've only done it twice. I was potentially able to ride it a third time, but the ride broke down, and it was my last day in Hollywood Studios. This was on my February trip, so I wasn't able to get that second ride in that trip. So this was my second time, and it was worth the wait.
It is absolutely such a great ride. Then you had your full day at Magic Kingdom, which I would imagine, even though you got to have a little taste the previous day, was great to just have the full day. I want to talk about the character cavalcades. This is something at all of the parks is happening, but especially at Magic Kingdom, I think there's something really, really special there. And this was your first time experiencing them. How do you feel about those when you compare them to not having parades and meet and greets?
I love them. I will be the first person to admit I'm not the biggest parade person. So I really was expecting to just kind of be take it or leave it with the cavalcades. I was like, okay, maybe I'll catch it. Maybe I'll see what it's about. But I was a big fan. I was stopping and watching them. The Mickey Cavalcade song got stuck in my head and was stuck in my head for like 3 days, and I didn't even mind. It was such a fun, catchy song.
Yeah, I love those. The fact that you don't have to sit around and wait for an hour to make sure you're getting a good spot. You're just walking up Main Street. Literally, that next day, you went on Wednesday to Magic Kingdom. I went the next day, and I just walked into Magic Kingdom, and right as I was walking onto Main Street, USA, here come the princesses coming down Main Street, Merida on the horse leading the way. And I'm like, you just can't get a better entrance than this. That was even the first day that they have just recently added Mulan back into some of these cavalcades. The Princess Cavalcade is like a float in the back, and that float went turning. And it wasn't until it turned that I saw Mulan was on there. And I almost like had a yelp, like, oh my gosh, like Mulan's here. Like I haven't seen Mulan since February of 2020. So it's really an exciting thing. I think how kids get to experience this in a way that when we went as kids, we never got to experience it like this. They're just walking, and then I remember how long you had to wait to save your spot on Main Street to see the parades, and now they're just walking, and here come the princesses. It's really like they live there, and I think that kids are really, really going to enjoy that.
Definitely. I actually ended up next to a family with little kids for one of the princess cavalcades. And there were two little girls who had princess dresses on, and they were just, loving every second of it. And the princesses were waving to them. And you could tell they really just loved that whole experience. So I hope they keep the cavalcades around. I really like them.
Yeah, I think they're the absolute best. The next day, Thursday, your last day at Walt Disney World for this trip, you went to Disney's Animal Kingdom, which is now turning into your sneaky favorite park, I think.
It really is. And it's something that I wasn't expecting. But I feel like lately, the past two trips, every time I go, I like it more. And I don't know. I blew it off for a long time. And I definitely had the cliched response of it's just a big zoo. Why do I want to go spend all my time there? I've got zoos at home, but it's not. I was so wrong. It's way more than that. And it really is, it's up there. I feel like some days it could really compete with Magic Kingdom for just my overall favorite park.
And with the reduced capacity, were you able to basically just ride everything? You didn't even have half a day before you had to be back to get Magical Express. Did you feel like you were able to experience Animal Kingdom enough in that time?
I was able to ride what my priorities were, which was Flight of Passage, Navi River, and Everest. Those were the three that I wanted to be able to do. And I ended up being able to ride Everest 3 times, which was more than I had expected. And I loved it. I was so happy I was able to do that. Um, but I feel like I definitely didn't get enough time there because even though I've in the past been like, oh, it's a half day park. You go and you ride the rides and you're done. But I really want to dedicate time to really exploring it more on my next trip and really wandering through all those animal trails and spending more time just kind of wandering around and taking it all in because it really is such a great park to almost get lost in. I feel like there are so many little paths and trails you can take that you maybe might not notice at first glance. And then it really enriches your whole experience of the park.
And I'm never above stealing other people's social media content, so I'm going to steal yours since I figure you're on my show. So you posted recently, if you only had 3 days at Walt Disney World and you were going to skip one park, which one would you skip? And I think a lot of people ended up saying Animal Kingdom. I didn't see which one won or lost your contest, depending on your particular point of view. But I would have a hard time skipping Animal Kingdom on a vacation.
I totally agree, and that was why I was very disappointed that Animal Kingdom got the most votes. It had 33%, somewhere around there, of the votes were saying they'd skip Animal Kingdom, and then Hollywood Studios and Epcot were neck and neck for that second place. But yeah, how do you skip Animal Kingdom? I'm at a point where I don't think I can.
So it's a hard question that you asked, and that's not the point of this episode, so I won't go that much further in depth into it. The only thing I can think, and when I'm talking to clients, a lot of times I'll have clients who are only going to be able to have 3 days in the parks. This is a conversation that, depending on the makeup of the traveling party, comes up a great deal. Because you can't guarantee that you're going to get to ride the best ride at Hollywood Studios, I end up sometimes suggesting skipping Hollywood Studios because if I can't experience the best thing the park has to offer, that's a big drawback for me. Now, a lot of times you do get to experience it, and when you do, it's a great park and it's a fantastic ride. But I think I would have to answer with Hollywood Studios if I didn't know if I was going to get to ride Rise of the Resistance.
Which is funny you say that because that was my answer too. As much as I do really love Galaxy's Edge, that in itself isn't enough to pull the park up to the status I think the other parks are at, especially like you said, there's no guarantee you get to ride the best ride in the park.
So then I started my day at Magic Kingdom on that Thursday. I literally parked at the parking lot at the TTC, got on the monorail, took the monorail into Magic Kingdom because that was my park reservation for the day, entered the park, rode the People Mover, got back on the monorail, and headed over to Animal Kingdom to meet Marissa because we had a dining reservation at Tiffin's, the signature restaurant at Disney's Animal Kingdom. First of all, just entering Tiffin's and seeing all of this great detail. Tell me about that a little.
It was incredible. Walking in, you could really see how much care had been put into every single detail of the restaurant's design. I mean, no matter where you looked, you're looking at something that has such significance to the restaurant and the theme park as a whole. It was phenomenal. I don't think I've ever been in a restaurant that has had so much precision and care put into just the theme and how it looks and what you're looking at as you're dining.
This was my third trip to Tiffin's, and we were put in a completely different room. I had never been in this room before, so I've now been there 3 times, eaten in 3 different rooms. And we had our table right under prayer flags. I don't know if these were prayer flags that they brought back or if they were original prayer flags that Imagineering was putting together for different prototypes of the land. But they were right over our table. We were back in the corner, right on a window, so we were looking out at Discovery River, I believe is what it's called, the water that goes around Discovery Island. This restaurant is so beautiful on the inside, and we were kind of in a hurry, so we didn't get to explore it as much as maybe we would have liked, but it is really next level as far as immersion when you're talking about a restaurant. It is a hard reservation to get now, but I think it's definitely worth it. If you can find one, just make it work in your trip. But now we got to talk about the food, because the food was really good. Marissa, what did you get?
So I got the plant-based tacos. It's technically considered an appetizer, but you get two tacos, and I thought it was a good amount of food. With what we had done, I was full at the end of the meal, and it was actually my first time ordering something like a plant-based meat derivative product. It was so good. They were just delicious. Oh my gosh. All like the flavors just blended together so perfectly. It was spiced perfectly. It was on like this great corn tortilla that didn't fall apart, which was fantastic. It was so good.
So I also got the plant-based tacos, and I can attest to everything she is saying about them. They are really, really good. I've gotten them all 3 times. What I like to do, because Tiffin's is a signature restaurant and it is priced as such. So I find that mixing and matching the appetizers can be a way to afford, to get more, to try more. This way you're not just getting an entree that is expensive and then you're only getting one flavor palette. So I got the plant-based tacos, which do have an imitation meat. You're not going to be able to tell. If you're usually a meat eater, go for it. You're going to love it. It tastes great. I also got the falafel with like a mint sauce. Now, I do not usually like mint, especially in real foods that aren't desserts. It's very, very light, but it just counteracts the spiciness of the sauce as well, giving your mouth a whole bunch of different flavors and really making you enjoy the taste of the falafel, because anybody who's had falafel knows if you're not spicing it up around it, it can just be really dry and almost tough to eat. This was really good. I've gotten both of those appetizers all 3 times that I've gone to Tiffin's, and I'm just not going to try anything different because if it ain't broke, you know? However, we also did add the bread service at Tiffin's. Now, for anybody listening, we were socially distant. We were constantly sanitizing our hands, and we were making sure that we weren't touching the same bread. We were being very responsible. So the sauces that came with this bread service were out of this world. So why don't you talk about them right now?
Oh my gosh, these sauces were beyond phenomenal. There was a red pepper hummus, a yogurt based sauce, and then a mango chutney. And they were 3 different types of bread. And the hummus and the yogurt sauce could go with, there was like more cracker type bread and then more of like a pita type bread, and you could do whatever. And then there was a more like cakey type bread that was meant for the chutney. And everything was just out of this world. All of the sauces were so ridiculously good. The red pepper hummus is without a doubt the best hummus I've ever had. I came home and I was like, man, now I'm really craving red pepper hummus. So I went to the store and got some, and I was eating it and I was like, it's just not the same. It's just never going to be the same until I go back and can have that again. It was so good.
I could not agree with your assessment of the red pepper hummus anymore. It was perfect. The thing about the yogurt sauce was that you hear yogurt, you immediately get an image in your mind of how it's going to feel on your tongue, the different flavors that you're going to get. But this was a little spicy. It had like a little kick. It was salty. I don't know what the seasonings they used were, but it was not yogurty. It wasn't sweet at all.
It was also a little thinner than you'd think a typical yogurt was. It wasn't that like thick, almost gloppy texture. It was a thinner, almost dip-like texture. So it was very like spreadable on your chip or your pita. And yeah, the spices didn't make it taste anything like you imagine when you think of yogurt. It was absolutely phenomenal.
And the chutney was really good. This was sweet. It came with that cakey bread that Marissa mentioned earlier. Definitely the only part of the bread service that you had to match the proper sauce with the proper bread. There were other ones that you could mix and match a little bit. The red pepper hummus tasted good on 2 of them, but this was definitely the bread made for the sauce. It was really, really good. Before we end this episode, I think we also have to mention our server. Our server was phenomenal. He was able to go through a list. At one point, Marissa had to get back to Magical Express, so we didn't have an unlimited amount of time. So at one point, he was going through the drinks, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, I don't mean to be rude, but neither of us drink, and we're kind of on a time crunch. But he was giving us so much detail on everything. They have drinks that are named after Imagineers, drinks that are named after some of the animals that are at Disney's Animal Kingdom, and he wanted to tell us everything. He definitely had pride in his work.
He was so knowledgeable about everything. It definitely made me wish that we had had more time there. In general, I wish we had had more time there, but you could tell that he's someone where you could ask him anything about the restaurant and he would know. He would have the answer. He'd have the backstory. He would have been a really great guy to just like chat with about different things in the room. I feel like he would have been able to tell us a lot of stories.
If you are looking for that special place to eat, you're going on a week-long vacation to Walt Disney World and you want to have that one fancy meal. There are a lot of places to try. There's Topolino's. That's one that I know a lot of people like to go for fancy. Obviously, there's California Grill at the Contemporary. We could talk about Hollywood Brown Derby, Cinderella's Royal Table, but don't count out Tiffin's. This food is awesome. It's a little more interesting. It's a little more unique. Second to none atmosphere-wise. All of the servers are amazing. The food is great.
Yeah, this was my first trip there. I had never been to Tiffin's before, but it definitely will not be my last. I will be back as soon as I can. It was just absolutely 10 out of 10 on every single aspect, from theming to cleanliness to the food to, our server. Everything there was so cared for, and you could tell that, right when you walk in, you see the care put into everything, and you taste it when you eat your food. Every part of that restaurant was beyond phenomenal, and it was the perfect way to end my trip, I have to say. So thank you for letting me come with you and experience that, because it was absolutely a highlight for me.
And in the interest of full disclosure, Marissa and I did not pay for our food. As a travel agent, I was gifted a one-time $50 dining gift card, and our bill actually ended up being $48. So we did tip our server, but we made it in under the $50 of the gift card. I just want to say that because it sounds like we're giving a glowing review, and if you're thinking, oh, well, the food was free, that's not why we're giving a glowing review. I've paid for meals at Tiffin's that came out to be way more expensive than our $48 meal, and I loved them just as much, but I did just want to share that with you so you didn't think I was doing anything nefarious. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marissa. How can people find you on the Twitter?
Well, thanks for having me. I am at ThinkMickeyBlog on Twitter. That's pretty much where I hang out most of the time. You'll find me on there tweeting about everything under the sun, but mostly Disney.
And how we need better Big Thunder Mountain merch at Walt Disney World.
That will be my new personal crusade, because I need some good Big Thunder shirts.
Get that done, Disney. This has been episode 17 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on social media for videos, pictures, blogs, and live streams. Facebook.com/ear-to-there-Rick, Twitter.com/Rick_ear, Instagram.com/RickEar2there, and Twitter.com/TGTT podcast. Also, contact me for a free, no obligation quote on a Walt Disney World vacation or any other type of vacation. Email me at rick@eartotheretravel.com, rick@eartotheretravel.com, or call me at 727-507-3123. My services are always 100% free to you. This has been Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Next week, Sarah from Seattle and I will talk about visiting Disneyland for a short trip if you're a Walt Disney World regular. That's coming up next Thursday. Have a great week.